So recently I went on my community tab, actually not so recently because I was posting this video a long time ago, but I did go on there and ask all of you what you wanted to see different in Netflix's adaptation of The Last Airbender. So let's go over some of your answers and a few of my own. Hey folks, welcome to the Geek Talk. Today we're going to discuss what we want to see that would be different in the adaptation. In the past weeks, we've seen that Netflix are already taking some liberties with the original, like the addition of a whole new character in Yukari who will play Suki's mom, as well as the addition of Mei and Ty Lee in season 1. So that got me thinking of what few things in the show I do want to see done differently. But I didn't want to do this video alone, so I invited the ladies over to help me out.
Hey guys, what is up? What is up? I'm Kendall.
I'm Tiana.
And I'm Mindy.
And we are the 3,
5,
4
Squad.
Oh my gosh, and we are so excited to be here. Thanks for having us, Antoine, and let's get to it.
One of the big missing scenes from the original show was that Toph never got a field trip with Zuko. And to be fair, of all of Team Avatar, she was the last one on the list to need a life-altering trip with Zuko. Plus, she already had a pretty good field trip with Iroh, which is a better dynamic for her than Zuko, at least in my opinion. That said, it would have been pretty cool to see Zuko and Toph adventuring somewhere in the Fire Nation or the Earth Kingdom. As we know, Zuko has been influenced by other bending types. In this scene against the Dai Li, he takes a page straight out of Katara's playbook. And later, during his Agni Kai with Azula, he adopts several styles that look like earthbending, from his stomping attack to the way he defends against Azula in one rooted spot. If we did get a Toph field trip episode, we could see where Zuko got some of these lessons and some of these ideas from. Basically, another episode of Bitter Work, but instead of it being Aang, it would be Zuko.
Alright, so something that we're really excited about is seeing more non-bending representation, or seeing more of those non-bending characters represented in this show. We already know that our girl Suki is one of the most underrated characters on this show. She's like an unofficial official member of Team Avatar, and we would love to see her become a more official member throughout this live action series. Because she's a badass head of the Kyoshi Warriors, and we would just love to see her shine in the series and see more of her and Sokka's dynamic, you know, fan and sword all day.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to see more of the Kyoshi Warriors and see them not just in association with Team Avatar, even though that would be very, very cool, but just seeing like a day in the life of the Kyoshi Warriors, a day in the life of Suki, or I know that people have pointed out wanting to see like what they were doing during season 2, like when they are not involved in the main storyline, or even after Azula captures them and takes them over and stuff like that, to see a more in-depth glimpse of their sort of life during that time.
I mean, we would just love a Kyoshi Warriors series at this point. Avatar Studios, give us some of that later on.
Or an Avatar Kyoshi show. Oh man.
And next up, we have user Jonathan Johnson, who says, have Azula's presence be more pertinent to the core of Zuko's drive. Not more so than the trauma of being scarred by Ozai, but it's a part of why he was so steadfast about having more techniques to capture the Avatar. And I sort of agree, and this is also something that we have learned from the new Netflix announcements, that Azula will be in book 1 in some fashion. Now, of course, this could just be a flashback like we saw her during the episode The Storm, or she could just be showing up at the end just like in the original show. But I think the fact that they cast her, and it was very important to cast her, and considering some of the other adjustments that we're seeing from this show, that she will actually have a direct, integral plot with the rest of Zuko's storyline. So I think we will see more back and forth, or at least some hints of her. Maybe she's messing around with Zhao a little bit, or we're going to see some scenes with her and Zhao, and maybe seeing how she's manipulating how Zhao's working with Zuko, or working against Zuko rather. So I definitely think that is possible, and I do agree that we should see a more pertinent core to Zuko in this new adaptation, because it is there. It definitely is there in the original show, but it could have a little bit more, and we have the opportunity now with the adaptation to see that relationship a little bit deeper.
Another thing that we're really excited about seeing, we want to see, is good bending, and bending represented well throughout this show. We all know that in the movie that must not be named, that they didn't do bending the best at all. So we're hoping that this live action will not take a page out of the movie's book and will actually go back to kind of the roots and all of the amazing martial art forms the bendings are inspired by, and do justice and do well in this series when representing bending.
Those, gritty live action Netflix originals, like the CGI and the visual effects are really good, and the costuming and everything. So like aesthetically, the show is probably going to be awesome.
Shang-Chi is exactly, I think, a good compass, like center of gravity to look at in terms of recent examples. Because if you compare what happened in Shang-Chi with what happened in the live action Mulan, they arrive at very different end points.
And then we had user Avatar Mufasa who writes, I think they could add some more of Ursa into the series. Whilst it's left unclear in the animation and answered in the comics, this could be a time to explore the Fire Nation politics a bit more than the original, perhaps a flashback to why Iroh stepped down. And yes, I totally agree about this. I have said this on my channel several times, especially when I did the reviews for the comic books The Search, which you can totally watch here if you want. But I thought Ursa was pretty bad as a mom, especially in how she handled Azula. Now, of course, it's very, very difficult to handle a child like Azula. She was a challenging child, to say the least, but the way Ursa sort of was very dismissive of Azula, I feel like, was not very becoming of that woman, and that woman as a mother to this very troubled child. And while we do get little hints of a backstory here and there in the original show, I think we definitely could use more, especially the relationship between Ursa and Azula.
Another thing that we would be interested in seeing is the political and darker plots of Avatar explored more, especially the Ba Sing Se plot. It would be cool to dive into Long Feng and the Dai Li's manipulation of kind of the city, and just the other kind of political and dark undertones of Avatar as well.
Yeah, and something I think that a longer form series could bring is, like you were saying, Kendall, with politics, a very clear way to flesh that out more is by expanding on the Dai Li and giving Long Feng a clearer objective, rather than just having him kind of being this power man behind the curtain, power broker guy in the background. I think one thing that is maybe missing is what is his motivation, or what is driving him to want this power to control Ba Sing Se. I think that would be something really cool to see, and something that you can do when you have longer episodes, and maybe you can cut to different places in a way kind of like the early Game of Thrones, and how you see chess pieces being moved across the board.
Next up, we have user Polyander who says, I'd like to see more episodes on what the Kyoshi warriors were doing during season 2, or what happened to Jet's freedom fighters. More side character plots, honestly. And this is definitely possible. Now, there is a weird thing going on here, because we had the original series, I believe every season had about 30-minute episodes, and there were 20 of them, and we're gonna get, I believe, 10 episodes in the new Netflix series, and they're gonna be 1 hour long. So really, we're gonna have the same runtime, but it seems like, I think some plot lines are gonna get cut out, and we're gonna have deeper storylines. Like, for instance, it looks like the Kyoshi warriors are gonna be a bigger draw for the adaptation. Now that we have Suki's mom, we're going to have Kyoshi in the story more so. There's going to be a lot that we can dive into in terms of those side characters. And I like that this user brings up Jet and the Freedom Fighters in particular, because I do think that storyline could definitely be a little bit deeper. And I think it's one that's overshadowed and overlooked a little bit by the fan base. And it's a really harsh reality of what happens to someone who is in war, who is orphaned by a Fire Nation who doesn't really care about them, and how they too have to be hard just to fight back, but kind of losing the sense of self, the sense of what they're fighting for. That you can do so much more with that than what we got from just that one episode of Jet, where it's like, oh, Jet's just a jerk. Bye. We could get more insight and more sympathy of why Jet did what he did, and how war changes everybody, not just the bad guys or the quote unquote bad guys of the war, but the good guys as well.
Another thing that we want to see is some good spirit world representation, and then hopefully they utilize the spirit world more. This made me think about, Aang and Roku's relationship, because kind of Aang interacts with Roku a lot in the spirit world. But it'd be cool just to have more Aang and Roku moments, which then spearheaded me to. We already have a cast for Kyoshi, which is so exciting, because if they're casting Kyoshi, I really, really hope that Kyoshi becomes one of Aang's main call-upons and mentors too with Roku, because we love and we see that Avatar help from the previous Avatar, but to have hopefully Roku, of course, still, and Kyoshi helping Aang and seeing Kyoshi more, since they casted a full person for Kyoshi, we're gonna get more Kyoshi, and that's always amazing.
And next up, we have user Dramaturge231 who writes, not making Katara so powerful so fast. And I have to say, I absolutely agree with this point. It is a critique I've had of the original series for a long time. I believe, and not just for Katara, I think a lot of the characters in the show have a little bit too fast of a power creep. And that's kind of what happens when you have a show that's taking place over 9 to 12 months. There's only like really a year that's taking place over these 3 seasons. So of course, there's going to have to be some speedy leveling up that's going to go on within the show. That's why I prefer things that have time skips, or there is a longer time, but that kind of, negates the drama, right, of Avatar, is that, you have to defeat the Fire Lord before Sozin's comet comes. But I do think that Katara's power creep was just way too quick. She could barely produce a puddle at the beginning of the show, and then she's, doing tidal waves by the end of it. I think it would have been better to see a nicer, slower progression of that, or just not make her as powerful as we see her in the show. Because really, if you think about it, there aren't really too many scenes except for maybe bloodbending, and I also have my own issues about bloodbending, and I swear I'm not going to rant too long, but there really isn't that many scenes where Katara needs to be crazy uber powerful. She could be good without having to do these, big feats of waterbending that I think should be reserved for a master who's been in the discipline, like a Paku, for many, many years, many decades, like a White Lotus type person, not a, teenager girl who's just able to do it within the span of 9 months. And last but not least, we have user Bree Jordan who says, the relationship that should have been Zutara. And yes, I am one of those people who I'm not like a #1 primary Zutara fan, but I don't go against it either. And I'm also sort of there for it. And more as a way of, I think they both could learn from one another, and they could be a stepping stone to the rest of their lives and to their other relationships, rather than them being in-game. In-game for sure should be Katara and Aang. Like that's no debate right there. I don't think Zutara should be in-game. Anybody who wants to argue with me about Zutara being in-game needs to have a conversation with me.
So the other thing that we want to see in this series is just the relationships fleshed out even more between our main characters, maybe some of our favorite ships. We're big Zutara fans here. We also love Sokka and Suki.
It'd be fun to see a little bit more canonical tension between Azula and Ty Lee, maybe, like romantic tension and stuff like that, because that could be a very much a driving force after May and Ty Lee leave her.
So yeah, those are our thoughts of what we want to see in this up-and-coming Netflix Avatar show. We hope it's gonna be good. We've heard it's good, so we're just excited to see and check it out soon. Thank you so much, Antoine, for having us. This has been absolutely amazing. And you can find us on YouTube at the 354 Squad. We do reviews and reactions to movies, TV shows, and we do sketches and gaming. Thanks again. Have a great day, guys. Bye!
That is the end of the video. Let me know what you think is okay to change in the adaptation and what you would like to see change in the new adaptation on Netflix. Of course, leave it in the comments below, and thank you to the 354 Squad for joining me on this video. As always, peace, love, and remember, be water, my friends.